You know what time it is? It's time to ask white people some questions.
Kwame's sick. Like and subscribe.
Hi, I'm Sam Gerard. I work in public relations for a nonprofit here in Washington, D.C. I'm from New York originally, but I grew up in Florida and Montgomery, Alabama, and I'm today's whitespert. So I think I always was concerned. I knew I might be white, but I guess all my life.
Round one.
Why do white people enjoy reading The Onion so much? The satirical news site, with the way the American news landscape is.
Yes.
In the state that it's in. It's pretty easy to understand, and unfortunately to say, that The Onion probably has more clout than CNN. As you know, CNN is very widely known for making up shit.
Yeah.
What makes them different from The Onion? Why do white people enjoy The Onion specifically for fake news? Why is that even a cool thing? Isn't that dangerous?
In this day and age, there definitely is a lot more hazard associated with it, but I would say the appreciation of The Onion can go back a little further than our current political landscape.
I need a comfort pillow. Go ahead.
Yeah, now we're talking about satirical news, yeah. So I would say that the appreciation of The Onion goes back much further than our current political landscape, because back when things were not as, like, we can easily say that government institutions sort of exist as a satire of themselves nowadays. So Betsy DeVos does not believe in public education, but she's in charge of the Department of Education. Andrew Wheeler, who's in charge of the EPA, used to be a coal lobbyist. There's a lot of people who are sort of walking contradictions of the departments that they're supposed to represent. Mm-hmm. So the poignancy of Onion, I will cede to you, is less valid in that sense today. Mm-hmm. However, I believe that The Onion has brought up some very valid points about things like gun violence, around things like the absurdism associated with Trump and the Trump cult. Mm-hmm. And I think they've sort of evolved and raised different kinds of concerns with their same platform in a different way. Mm-hmm. So I think The Onion has done a decent job of evolving and becoming a little bit more dynamic in this political age that we live in. And I think that's a valuable tool in order to not lose sight of the way things should be, mm-hmm. and to sort of take note of where we've strayed from that normalcy.
See, it's funny you say that, because I was looking up a little about, a few things about The Onion. It was founded in 2000 by a couple of friends. And it's interesting that you mentioned that because things back then could be taken more facetiously without, irrespective of our current political climate, yes. I still think that's quite dangerous. And here's why. I get that now people use comedy. Comedy has now been a vehicle to raise poignant concerns, as you said, about some of the things that we as a country are concerned about that aren't being talked about at their kitchen tables. Sure. It's a good way to slip in things. But when it comes to satirical news, actual print online, and when you put into perspective how difficult it is to find a justifiable news source, as it is, I feel and I believe that with it being so hard to discern as to what's real and what's fake, and then you have an agent who just specializes in fakeness, mm-hmm. throwing their hat into the ring of the other imposters, I feel like it just makes it that much more confusing. Now, to be fair, I think people now know that The Onion is wholly satirical. Yes. Because before, and I was ignorant to this, I didn't know what The Onion was. It was a very odd name for a publishing.
You thought The Onion was real news?
Yeah, I didn't know what it was.
You're a grown man.
Well, listen. You have to understand. I consider myself a germaphobe. I'm very critical of the news that I read. I'm very picky about what I read and where I get it from. So when I came upon The Onion, when I discovered it was Columbus did, I was like, no way, no, this can't be right. I have no way, this isn't true. And I looked it up, and I was like, okay, so this is satirical news. But I found myself still upset at the simple fact that I took it seriously for a moment.
Yeah. That's on you, though.
I mean, while that may be on me, it's just as someone that's not well versed with the idea of satirical newspapers, because you have to understand, I never knew this existed. Why is this even a thing? That's like people walking around with cop uniforms and they're not actually cops.
No, I think there's some...
They do that, though.
There are people that do that.
That's why it's a crime to do that.
No, but I think, especially since we have freedom of press in the country, there definitely is a little bit more validity around satirical news as it stands as exclusive, just satirical news.
Right.
The Onion isn't trying to give CNN or Wall Street Journal a run for its money by going out there and and publishing a weird article about bees flying out of Rex Tillerson's mouth or something like that.
Right.
Which I don't think is even an Onion article, but I would be surprised if it wasn't too different from existing Onion articles out there. But it sort of just derives from this long-standing tradition of having these satirical newspapers on college campuses. So one of the best ones would probably be the Harvard Lampoon, where they would literally just make up stuff as a way of making fun of the very rigid, very establishment Harvard normalcy that these people who had proclivity toward comedy found themselves doing. And so I think there's validity in sort of prodding fun at what you know exists or what sort of empirical truths exist out there. So I think there should be more attempts to prod at the news once you know that the news is normal. But in a situation where there's a lot of gray area and a lot of ambiguity, that becomes a lot more dangerous. However, I think The Onion is doing a good job of making that differentiation pretty stark. Because there was a article that my editor shared with me at work that said something along the lines of Trump administration to roll back lunch standards to allow more pizza and potatoes for children. Or pizza and french fries. I think it actually said pizza and french fries. I legitimately thought that was a satirical article, and then I went on Facebook like 30 seconds later, and that article was all over the place. So, like, the Trump administration was actually rolling that back as a food standard for like school lunches. Yeah.
See, that's the thing. It's like, just to jump in, it's the fact that these article titles are too close in proximity to something that could potentially happen. If, like, when you talked about the Harvard Lampoon, what's in their name? Lampoon, in and of itself, lets you know right off bat, hey, this is to be taken facetiously. This is a joke. Whereas The Onion, albeit it depends on one's perception of the word onion, layers and things like that.
I think this is too deep.
Well, you have to understand, again, this is something that...
Now I can only think of that Shrek thing when he's explaining the donkey.
No, this is the simple fact that when you have stories or leads or headlines that could possibly be true.
Yeah.
And they're not like nonsensically like just unrelated, that's when I think it's dangerous. Like your example with the pizza and french fries. Again, it's not dangerous. It's just that, hey, for a second, you fell for it.
Yeah.
But you thought it was the inverse, whereas I thought it was the other way around.
Yeah, I agree. However, with one thing that I'm maintaining is that Onion's current permutation is not doing it is not going in the stranger direction, or is going in a stranger direction, or going in a less believable direction, in order to make bigger points about absurd motifs that we're seeing in reality and in news. So it's like they would take it to a stronger extreme, sort of just as a reactionary sense to what's going on in the actual news itself. Which could be a valuable point to point out the absurdity, or a valuable mechanism to point out the absurdity going on in our current discourse. But at the same time, I don't think it's a ground or space that they should cede, because it still proves the fact that we're living in a more fucked up world, and that we need to sort of take the helms on that. And The Onion doesn't really advocate for specific things. Whenever there's a shooting here in the States, they always repost that, if only there was something we could do, says country where this is the only thing that happens article. And I know I'm messing that up, that's not verbatim what the article title is, but they're making that poignant point that the United States is not taking gun violence seriously enough, and so they're pointing that out in their seemingly stupid way, but at the same time, with it being stupid and repetitive, it's also very poignant, and it's also very illustrative. So the fact that we have so many mass shootings in the United States means that we should take like this constant recurring prod at ourselves a lot more seriously in order to tackle gun violence.
I feel like the only way we can take gun violence seriously is if black people en masse go buy guns. I think then they will change the law. But that's just me. So
I don't like guns.
Jerrie, do you like the Onion at all?
No, because they called Quvenzhané Wallis during the Oscars. I'm not going to say the word, but it's the C word. And she was like 9 when they called her this.
Run with punt?
Yes.
That's
terrible. So since then, I'm like,
yeah, turn your
Onion is trash.
Right. But you knew it was a joke, right?
Well, why? But my thing is, why would you think that was an okay joke? Why are you coming for a 9-year-old black child?
Yeah,
she's done nothing.
I do agree that's an inappropriate space to go.
And I'm like, if you're allowed to print that, I question. Even I don't know. I have a problem with some of these spaces where it's like we know so much. We think that we're pointing out all these absurdities in our culture. It's like, but then you go ahead and say that thing about a 9-year-old child. Mm-hmm. You're not as what's the word? You're not where you think you really are.
You're not as illuminated. Yeah.
Yeah, if you think that's a fun joke. So since then, I'm like, I'm not really feeling the Onion. But I knew it was a joke. I didn't read those headlines like you and get confused.
Yeah.
Well, the confusion comes into the point where I don't understand the purpose. What's the point? Like the joke that you took offense to about the 9-year-old girl. To some people, that apparently was funny. It's unfortunate, but that's on you for being offended by it. Just like I shouldn't be offended by the simple fact that this is a completely fake production about something that could possibly happen on the premise that they want to lighten up certain issues. I just don't think the purpose justifies the existence of the newspaper.
Round 2.
So why do white people wear summer attire in winter? So like flip-flops and it's raining, or shorts and it's snowing. They don't seem to get cold.
That's a good goddamn question.
So I could never tell whether or not this was like you don't grow up where it's cold or you grow up where it's always really cold kind of thing for white people. Because I've noticed that like back when I lived in Florida and Alabama, and when it was like cold, people would just walk around with like shorts and sneaks on. And it's like, I don't know whether or not you just aren't used to like the fact that you need to wear long pants, or the fact that you have to wear like closed-toed shoes or coats. But I also have seen that like up in Ohio and like around here, where people walk around up with like shorts or like just a polo shirt on even though it's 20 degrees outside. So I'm convinced it's because white people want to will the weather to whatever they're wearing, which I will not repeat. That is a very hard phrase to repeat.
Yeah.
But I'm convinced it's more so just like an ignorance to how you're supposed to dress. So it's like, no, if it's...
But they do it every season, so
yeah.
Don't they realize?
No, I'm not defending them. I'm saying they're dumb to do that. You gotta go out, you gotta go and like, at least put your hand on the window, see if the window's cold. I used to do that when I was a kid to see if I should like put on a sweater. I still do that as an adult. It's not the best way of gauging it. Doing weather on the phone is much cooler because it's like, oh yeah, I need to put on a pea coat and trench coat, or trench coat over pea coat. It's just how I roll.
When I see white people in the wintertime wearing shorts or flip-flops, usually it's College Park UMD students, they're walking around, their terps and stuff on. And I know that white people are susceptible to viruses and diseases like everyone else. You know, we're all human.
Yes, of course.
But do they not know that it's pneumonia weather? Like, every time I go outside without a hat on, I'm afraid that I'm going to catch a cold within the first 5 or 6 seconds. And this is regardless if I'm bald or not. I know you're going to bring that shit up.
You don't have hair.
It doesn't matter if I have fucking hair. The thing is,
that's why.
The fact of the matter is that I know that I have but so much amount of time before I catch a cold.
Yeah.
I probably already caught the cold as soon as I stepped out and my pores were open. It's like white people walk around with like runner's shorts and flip-flops and it's like 30 degrees outside.
I have another one.
Another topic or another?
No, same idea.
Yeah.
Running around without hats. You mentioned a hat, but when it's sunny out, I always see people out, like just in general, not dressing for the weather.
Oh, like when it's cold and running without hats?
Like it's middle of the day.
Yeah.
Nothing covering you. No sunscreen, no hat, no nothing. Why?
Oh, because they have great hair.
But you know
Sorry, it may not be relatable, but...
You got to apologize to me, Jeff.
You know how the sun is going to affect you, though, right?
Yeah, but if you're out for, like, a little amount of time...
No, hours.
No, see, I only get it, like, if I'm out for, like, a really long time. Like, 4+ hours, 5+ hours, but usually it's like an hour outside max, which is probably why I'm like, I don't get sunburned much or don't get hit as much. I'm also like slightly tan. I'm like,
No.
no.
Nah, man.
I can see your veins.
Printing paper, dog.
This
You're
is
almost
printing.
transparent. I mean, I
It's
just
like,
think
no, it's
that
like eggshell. It's like the same color as the couch.
eggshell white. Did you just say? It's like, what type of finish is that? That's a finish in paint. I just think that certain races have certain advantages. This is just this is not even conjecture. This is just me talking out my ass. Like, I feel like as black people, we have a high amount of melanin in our skin, obviously.
You gotta be careful though.
I mean, it's in our eyes and everything.
Well, Bob Marley died of skin cancer.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, we did?
He did.
I don't know.
Was on his toe.
But was that because his genetics were in question, given the fact that his father was also white? He probably inherited it.
But like most African Americans, if you do the DNA stuff, you're not gonna come back like 100%.
black, yeah.
So you never know what's in there.
True. Like these probably dormant genes that.
And I think they
activate.
say we get melanoma and we get it the worst
Yeah.
because they don't check us.
See, my understanding, I thought we were more susceptible to certain internal things. Like, we're more prone to get diabetes. We're more prone to have high blood. You know, your mom said, you know, we got high blood pressure. We got the sugars in our family. We got
My
high
mom doesn't talk
cholesterol.
like that.
Well,
I'm gonna need you to take that.
Well, listen, you're from a completely different region, so that's understandable.
Or like
but I'm just
sickle
saying,
cell.
sickle cell, yeah, sickle cell. These things that we're susceptible to, that they're susceptible to, they're just not susceptible to the cold. In my opinion, because every time I see them, I talk to white people every day at my job who show up.
But they love like REI and all those places, and they sell like canned goods.
I don't know what.
But,
all those-
but I think that's more of like a culture thing where
What is
like
Ray?
we like going
Huh?
camping.
What is Ray?
REI.
It's
Okay,
like
REI.
recreation something.
It's like
Incorporated.
camping
Right.
and
It's just
REI.
REI. Oh,
REI.
that, so
Yeah, like
it's
the
an
outdoor
acronym
company.
is the name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like, what are you spelling out?
no.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
okay.
So there's this stupid map I saw on Reddit a really long time ago. I don't know whether or not it's like a justified thing,
Mhm.
but it showed like melanin concentration in humans being stronger closer to the equator, and you have less melanin further, like closer to the poles you are.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that goes along with the conjecture around white people being better at dealing with the cold or not, just
Mhm.
because like that's where they're from. I don't know.
I think it's interesting just to like observe as to what attribute each race. Like they say, it's a genetic mutation as to why the Irish apparently can drink so much, even though it's a stereotype. Apparently, there is a genetic mutation there, just like there's a genetic mutation that happened in Japan as to why they can't drink but so much. They have an enzyme. They have a deficiency in a certain enzyme that doesn't allow them to consume alcohol the same
Yeah.
way everyone else does.
That's the same with lactose intolerance.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
most black folks are lactose intolerant.
Is it really? Like even like
If I drink milk right now, it's like throwing a funk grenade in this motherfucker. I'm gonna blow it up. It's gonna be terrible and it's going to be unforgivable.
so we have to do it for the views.
That's why I eat dairy at home, the privacy of my home. So I can spare the people of my loved ones.